Hello and welcome to Hope Reactor. Today, we tell the story of a man whose name most people have never heard, a man who never became famous, a man who never received the Nobel Prize. And yet, without him, modern medicine, biotechnology, genetic engineering, and even AI-driven biology might not exist today. His name was Oswald Avery. He was not a showman. He did not chase headlines. He did not try to be remembered. He simply followed the evidence, step by step, experiment by experiment, and in doing so, he uncovered something humanity had searched for since the beginning of science. He discovered the blueprint of life. Chapter 1. The world before DNA. Today we learn in school that DNA carries genetic information. It feels obvious. It feels natural. It feels like common knowledge. But in the early 1900s, scientists believed something very different. They believed that proteins were responsible for heredity, and their reasoning seemed logical. Proteins are complex. They have many shapes. They can perform many functions. DNA, on the other hand, looked simple. Too simple. Scientists saw DNA as a boring molecule, a repetitive chain, a chemical skeleton with no imagination. Many researchers dismissed it entirely. They believed DNA was just structural material, a supporting actor, not the star of the show. This belief became scientific consensus, and once a consensus forms, it can become difficult to challenge, not because scientists are stubborn, but because humans are. Chapter 2. A quiet man with a different question. Oswald Avery was born in 1877 in Canada. He later moved to the United States and became a physician and bacteriologist. He worked at the Rockefeller Institute, one of the leading research centers in the world. But Avery was different from many scientists of his time. He was quiet, reserved, careful. He spoke softly. He published slowly. He preferred precision over popularity. Most importantly, he trusted data more than reputation. While others focused on big theories, Avery focused on small details. He spent years studying a single bacterium, Streptococcus pneumonia, the bacteria that causes pneumonia. To many researchers, this was routine work, but to Avery, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Chapter 3. The strange transformation. In the 1920s and 1930s, scientists noticed a mysterious phenomenon. Some bacteria could suddenly change. Harmless bacteria could become deadly. It was as if they had received instructions from somewhere else. Researchers called this process transformation, but no one understood how it worked. What was carrying the instructions? What was transmitting the information? What was the message written in? Many scientists assumed the answer had to be proteins. After all, proteins were complicated enough to store information. DNA was not. At least, that was the assumption. Chapter 4. The experiment that changed biology. Avery and his team decided to investigate. They designed a simple but elegant experiment. First, they took deadly bacteria. Then they destroyed the bacteria, breaking them into pieces. Next, they separated the components: proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, RNA, DNA. One by one, they removed each component and tested whether transformation still occurred. If transformation stopped, they would know they had found the key. So they removed proteins. Transformation still happened. They removed lipids. Transformation still happened. They removed carbohydrates. Transformation still happened. Then they removed DNA, and something remarkable occurred. Transformation stopped completely. No change, no mutation, no new behavior, nothing. The message was clear. The instructions were gone, because the instructions were written in DNA. Chapter 5. Challenging the consensus. In 1944, Avery published his findings. The paper concluded, DNA is the carrier of genetic information. This was revolutionary. It overturned decades of scientific belief. It challenged textbooks. It challenged professors. It challenged authority. But the reaction was not celebration. It was skepticism. Many scientists refused to accept the conclusion, not because the data was weak, but because the idea felt uncomfortable. DNA seemed too simple, too repetitive, too ordinary. How could something so plain hold the complexity of life? Some researchers dismissed Avery's work. Others ignored it. A few even resisted it openly. This is the moment when science becomes human, because progress does not only depend on discovery, it depends on acceptance. Chapter 6. Recognition that came too late. Over the next decade, new experiments confirmed Avery's conclusion. In 1952, the famous Hershey-Chase experiment provided additional proof. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the double helix structure of DNA. Their model explained how DNA could store information. Suddenly, the scientific world understood. Avery had been right. He had been right all along. But by then, it was too late. Oswald Avery died in 1955. He never received the Nobel Prize. His discovery became one of the most important breakthroughs in the history of biology. Yet his name remained in the shadows, quiet, uncelebrated, almost invisible. Chapter 7. The Foundation of the Modern World. Today, Avery's discovery supports entire industries: genetic medicine, cancer research, vaccine development, forensic science, agriculture, biotechnology, synthetic biology, artificial intelligence in healthcare. All of these fields depend on one idea. DNA carries information. When doctors sequence a genome, they are reading Avery's discovery. When scientists edit genes using CRISPR, they are applying Avery's discovery. When AI models analyze genetic data, they are standing on Avery's foundation. The digital revolution changed how we process information. The genetic revolution changed how we understand life. And both revolutions begin with the same principle: information matters. Chapter 8. The Courage to Trust Data. Oswald Avery did not seek attention. He did not try to win arguments. He did not try to defeat other scientists. He simply asked a question: what does the evidence say? This mindset is rare because challenging consensus is uncomfortable. It invites criticism. It invites doubt. It invites isolation. But progress requires courage. Not loud courage. Not dramatic courage. Quiet courage. The courage to repeat an experiment again and again. The courage to trust numbers over opinions. The courage to follow truth, even when it stands alone. Chapter 9. The Lesson for the Age of AI. In 2026, we live in a world powered by data. Artificial intelligence learns from data. Medical systems depend on data. Scientific breakthroughs rely on data. But data alone is not enough. We also need people who are willing to question assumptions, people who are willing to test ideas, people who are willing to challenge the consensus, because consensus can be wrong. History proves it. The Earth was once believed to be flat. Disease was once blamed on bad air. DNA was once considered unimportant. Every generation inherits beliefs, and every generation must test them. That is how knowledge grows. That is how civilization advances. Final message: the quiet architect of life. Oswald Avery never became a household name. He never stood on a stage. He never gave famous speeches. He never celebrated victory. Instead, he worked in a laboratory, day after day, year after year, carefully, patiently, relentlessly. He did not chase recognition. He chased truth. And because of that pursuit, humanity discovered the code of life. So the next time you hear the phrase, the blueprint of life, remember the man who found it. Not with fame, not with power, not with applause, but with persistence, with discipline, with evidence, and with the courage to challenge the consensus. Thank you for watching Hope Reactor. If this story inspired you, consider subscribing to the channel, because history is full of hidden heroes, and sometimes the quietest voices change the world the most.